Every Halloween, people around the world put on masks.
And try to outdo each other with the dumbest ideas imaginable. But some folks take scary to a whole new level. Not with costumes, but with choices so stupid they'd make a zombie facepalm. From failed pranks to deadly magic tricks, these are the Halloween disasters that turned into real-life Darwin Award moments, proving once again that evolution works hardest on October 31st. Number 1. Let's start with Exhibit A, the electric chair enthusiast. This guy wanted to build the scariest haunted house in his entire neighborhood. Cobwebs? Boring. Fake skeletons? Overdone. He wanted something authentic, something that made people scream for real. So, naturally, he decided to build a working electric chair. Yes, with real wires and real voltage. Because, of course, that's the kind of decision every rational adult makes after 2 cups of coffee and a YouTube tutorial titled DIY Haunted Effects. So there he was, proud, sweaty, holding a handful of wires like some mad scientist, and decided to just give it a quick test. No safety gear, no rubber gloves, not even a buddy to shout, "Don't do it." The test went about as well as you'd expect. The haunted house instantly became haunted for real. The irony? His setup was so convincing that when people later saw it, they said, "Wow, that looks so real." Yeah, because it was. If your Halloween prop requires an electrician's license and a life insurance update, maybe just go with fake cobwebs. Number 2. Moving on to next exhibit, the spider that got its revenge. Every neighborhood has that one person who takes holiday decorations way too seriously. The guy who climbs onto his roof every year, risking his life for the perfect photo of his haunted house on Facebook. This man was that guy, except he wanted to outdo everyone with a giant spider crawling down his roof. Not a plastic one. Oh no, this thing was enormous. A hand-built monstrosity the size of a car, secured with ropes, glue, and pure ego. He climbed up the roof, hammer in one hand, plastic fangs in the other. Everything was going great until the universe reminded him of something called gravity. One slip, one wrong step, and suddenly he was doing an unplanned audition for America's Got Falling Talent. The spider survived. The decorator didn't. Some neighbors said, well, at least it looked realistic. And you know what? They weren't wrong. Number 3. And now, the Cape Crusader who couldn't fly. Because no Halloween is complete without someone trying to become their costume. This guy dressed as a superhero. Full outfit, long dramatic cape, the whole thing. He wasn't just wearing it, he embodied it. After a few drinks and a crowd of equally overconfident friends, he had an idea. Watch this. I'm gonna jump off this wall like in the movies. Now, movie heroes have stunt doubles. He had a cape made of cheap polyester and overconfidence. He leapt dramatically into the air. And that's when physics struck again. The cape got tangled around his legs mid-jump, pulling him down faster than his dignity could keep up. Witnesses later said, it looked cool for about half a second. That's usually how these stories go. 1 second of glory, followed by a lifetime of, what were you thinking? Number 4. Some people just can't resist the urge to pull a prank, especially during Halloween. Our genius decided it would be hilarious to jump in front of his friend's car wearing a creepy mask, just to give them a good scare. Because nothing says funny like pretending to be a horror movie villain on a dark road at night. So he hides in the bushes, heart pounding with excitement, waiting for the headlights to appear. The car turns the corner. He leaps out dramatically, full horror movie energy. And for a split second, he probably thought, this is going to be legendary. And then physics stepped in. The driver didn't have time to stop, and in an instant, the prank turned into a real-life tragedy. See, when you combine bad lighting, fast-moving vehicles, and teenage brains fueled by adrenaline and TikTok ideas, you're not staging a prank. You're creating a PSA for road safety. If there's one lesson to take from this, being the monster on the road only works if you're in a movie, not when you're the one standing in front of 2 tons of metal moving at 40 miles an hour. Number 5. Now, onto the haunted hayride horror. For those who haven't experienced it, a haunted hayride is one of those wholesome American traditions where you pile onto a wagon full of hay, get pulled through a dark field, and people in costumes jump out to scare you. It's supposed to be harmless fun, unless, of course, someone decides to improvise. That's exactly what happened one Halloween night in Tennessee. A boy thought it would be funny to add his own surprise scare to the ride. He hid behind some bushes near the trail, waiting for the wagon to roll by. The plan: jump out, yell something spooky, make everyone scream, and then laugh about it later. But as he jumped, his foot caught on a root. The ground was slick with dew. And instead of landing heroically, he slipped right under the wagon's wheels. The tractor driver didn't even have time to react. And the scene that was meant to cause laughter turned into something far worse. The saddest part? Everyone on that hayride thought it was part of the show. For several seconds, they actually clapped. It's one of those grim reminders that when it comes to Halloween pranks, timing and location matter. A haunted hayride is meant to have controlled scares, not spontaneous ones from enthusiastic volunteers with zero safety training. If you want to join the show, apply next year. Don't dive under a moving vehicle this one. Number 6. And then there's the real knife incident. Every haunted house in America has that one room. Dim lights, eerie music, fake blood, and an actor with a rubber knife pretending to chase you. The idea is to get your heart racing, not to send you to an actual hospital. But in this Ohio haunted attraction, one performer managed to blur that line a bit too much. He was supposed to use a prop knife, dull, plastic, and safe. But somewhere along the setup, he accidentally grabbed a real one. Maybe someone left it near the props. Maybe he wasn't paying attention. Maybe he thought, it'll look more real this way. Spoiler, it did. When a group of visitors came through, including a kid who was just there for some Halloween fun, the actor lunged forward with his knife, aiming for a dramatic scare. Only this time, there was no rubber. The blade cut deep, and the crowd's terrified screams were all too genuine. The actor froze in shock, probably realizing that his method acting had just gone way too far. The good news? The victim survived. The bad news? The haunted house immediately became too authentic. Parents protested, the local news ran with the headlines like, "When Halloween Gets Too Real." And the actor probably retired from scaring people forever. Because, as it turns out, if your haunted house ends with an actual police report, you're doing it wrong. Number 7. Next, Indiana, where a group of teenagers decided they were comedic geniuses. Their master plan? Sneak up to an old woman's house late at night with a glowing pumpkin, scream at her window, and film her reaction for social media. Because nothing says Halloween spirit like terrorizing your neighbors. So they crept through the bushes, held up the jack-o'-lantern, and on cue, let out the kind of scream that would make a horror director jealous. Unfortunately for everyone involved, the prank worked too well. The poor woman, absolutely terrified, collapsed on the spot. The teens went from laughing to panicking in seconds. Their little Halloween prank turned into a full-blown emergency. The glowing pumpkin rolled away into the darkness, and with it, the last trace of their common sense. Fear may be funny in movies, but in real life, it comes with consequences, and sometimes those consequences are irreversible. Number 8. Next, we're headed to the open highway, where one man decided that Halloween costumes shouldn't be confined to parties or haunted houses. No, he wanted to bring the fright to the streets. Dressed as a zombie, complete with torn clothes, fake blood, and that classic undead shuffle, he thought it would be hilarious to spook drivers on a dark rural road. Because who wouldn't want to see a zombie stumbling across the highway at midnight, right? Unfortunately, not every driver out there is prepared for impromptu theater. A trucker came barreling down the road, saw something lurching in the headlights, and had no time to brake. The zombie discovered, far too late, that real life doesn't have a stunt coordinator. Turns out, stepping into traffic for a scare is a bad idea, no matter how committed you are to your role. Maybe next time, stick to the costume contest instead of trying to win a posthumous Darwin Award. Number 9. Now, if you thought the last two were bad, buckle up, because the next story is about what happens when adults forget how to act like, well, adults. In one quiet American neighborhood, Halloween night took a dramatic turn thanks to, of all things, a bowl of candy. Two men started arguing over treats collected by their kids. Apparently, one thought the other took more than his fair share. The debate escalated from, "Hey, that's not fair," to full-blown screaming match. Within moments, these two geniuses were wrestling on the sidewalk like sugar-crazed toddlers. But this wasn't just some harmless scuffle. One punch landed harder than intended, and the situation turned deadly serious. All over a few fun-sized Snickers. Imagine explaining that to the police. What happened? We were fighting over candy. Somewhere, Darwin was slow, clapping in disbelief. Number 10. Next, a college dorm. The perfect breeding ground for both bad decisions and future Darwin Award nominees. It was Halloween night, and one student decided to take part in what's known in academic circles as a competitive drinking event. Because nothing screams intelligence like trying to prove your worth by chugging enough alcohol to sterilize a hospital. Dressed in a costume that was probably ironic and covered in regret, he joined the contest to see who could drink the most in the shortest amount of time. Now, most people stop when their vision blurs or the room starts spinning, but not our hero. He went for gold. 1 shot, 2 shots, 3 bottles, who knows how many after that. At some point, he wasn't drinking anymore. He was conducting a chemical experiment inside his own liver. His friends, equally enlightened, cheered him on like he was breaking a world record. Go, bro, you got this. Spoiler, he did not, in fact, have this. The party went from frat house fun to crime scene caution tape faster than you can say designated driver. And here's the kicker. The next morning, everyone stood around, hungover and confused, saying things like, "We had no idea this could happen." Really? You mixed gallons of alcohol, peer pressure, and zero self-awareness, and you didn't think it could end badly? That's like jumping into a shark tank covered in barbecue sauce and saying, "I didn't think they'd bite." Number 11. Our next contestant in the Halloween Hall of Shame took things to new heights, literally. Picture this: a rooftop Halloween party, music blasting, drinks flowing, and one guy who decides the best way to impress everyone is to do a cool trick on the balcony. He might have been a pirate, a superhero, or maybe just a guy dressed as a poor decision. It doesn't really matter. Fueled by liquid courage and a complete lack of coordination, he climbed onto the railing, probably shouting something like, "Check this out!" Gravity checked him out instead. The crowd below gasped as their friend became a human meteor, taking his trick all the way down to the sidewalk. The irony? He wasn't trying to fly. But at least for a brief, horrifying second, he succeeded. Witnesses later said it all happened so fast, but honestly, it's impressive how fast dumb ideas can turn into headlines. You'd think after centuries of evolution, humans would have learned that alcohol and heights mix about as well as bleach and ammonia. But hey, every generation has to learn the hard way. Number 12. And then, a tragic comedy of errors that could have been avoided with just a little self-control and a lot less ego. Two guys, good friends, were hanging out at a Halloween gathering. You know how it goes. Spooky decorations, bad costumes, cheap beer. At some point, one of them decided to pull a prank on the other. Maybe it was something silly, like jumping out in a mask or switching his drink for hot sauce. But instead of laughter, it sparked rage. Because apparently, Halloween pranks are only funny until you're the one being pranked. The victim of the joke didn't laugh. He didn't calm down. He didn't even count to 10. Instead, he decided to settle things with a little ballistic diplomacy. And just like that, the prank went from, "Haha, got you," to, "Wow, he really got him." What started as a harmless joke ended with headlines that probably read something like, "Halloween prank turns deadly. Police baffled by level of stupidity." It's moments like these that make you wonder if we're actually evolving or just looping through the same bad ideas every generation. We've got technology, education, warning labels, and yet every Halloween, someone finds a way to remind the universe that natural selection never sleeps. Number 13. Next, a man who took magic tricks a little too literally, the legendary, amazing Joe Burris. Joe wasn't exactly Houdini, but he thought he could be. The problem? Houdini knew what he was doing. Joe did not. It was Halloween night, the perfect time for a little spectacle. Joe, a self-proclaimed magician and an escape artist, had a dream: to outdo Houdini himself by being buried alive and escaping unscathed. The plan? Lock himself in a clear glass coffin, chain himself up for dramatic flair, and then get buried under 7 tons of dirt and wet cement. Because when your brain says, maybe just try a card trick first, Joe's brain says, nah, let's add construction materials. So, with a small crowd gathered, cameras rolling, and ego fully inflated, Joe got in the box. The dirt and cement began to pour. At first, the crowd was amazed. It looked just like the movies. Then, the ground trembled. The glass groaned. And then, crack. 7 tons of good ideas came crashing down. And suddenly, Amazing Joe was no longer amazing, just buried. The rescue crew dug him out hours later. But Houdini, he was not. Turns out, physics doesn't care about confidence. The laws of nature don't take requests. If you bury yourself under several tons of solid material, you're not performing magic. You're conducting a live demonstration of natural selection. Number 14. Meet Ekaterina Didenko and her husband, Valentin, the glamorous duo who thought dry ice was the perfect way to make their indoor pool look like a witch's cauldron. Nothing says Halloween vibes like a dense, mysterious fog and a lethal concentration of carbon dioxide. So, in the name of Instagram content, Valentin dumped 25 kilograms of dry ice straight into the pool. That's 55 pounds of frozen carbon dioxide, or as scientists call it, a great way to make everyone stop breathing. Guests gathered around, oohing and eyeing while clouds of vapor filled the air. Then the screaming started. The CO2 quickly displaced the oxygen in the room, turning the magical fog into a suffocating death trap. People collapsed almost instantly, and within minutes, the party went from spooky fun to chemical warfare reenactment. Valentine and two guests didn't make it, and the influencer herself, covered in glitter and disbelief, ended up on the news instead of the trending page. Let's pause here for a reality check. There's a reason why chemical warnings exist. If something requires gloves, goggles, and a ventilation system to handle safely, maybe don't toss it into your swimming pool next to a bunch of drunk partygoers in plastic devil horns. It's not Halloween magic. It's Darwin in action, shaking his head. Number 15. Somewhere, at some point, a guy in a witch costume had a few too many potions, by which I mean vodka shots, and decided that gravity was optional. Fueled by booze and self-confidence, he climbed onto the roof of his garage, clutching his trusty broomstick like it was his boarding pass to Hogwarts. Friends below probably cheered him on, because if there's one thing alcohol does better than impair balance, it's inflate courage. "Do it, bro! You can fly!" they shouted. And he believed them. He actually believed them. He raised the broom, gave a dramatic yell, and jumped. The flight lasted about 0.8 seconds, long enough for him to realize that witches in movies have CGI and wires. He landed with all the grace of a dropped pumpkin, shattering bones and dignity in equal measure. Paramedics arrived, confused, probably wondering if this was a late entry audition for Jackass. Halloween edition. The good news? He survived. The bad news? He'll have a lot of time in the hospital to think about the moment he tried to outsmart Newton. Number 16. Next, the chainsaw prank. That got out of hand because apparently teacher professionalism now includes cosplay as Leatherface. Somewhere in the Midwest, a teacher decided that the best way to celebrate Halloween at school wasn't with candy or costumes, but with sheer terror. He put on a mask, fired up a chainsaw, and charged at another teacher in the hallway. Now, this might sound like a low-budget remake of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, PTA edition, but it was all meant to be a prank. Unfortunately, the victim didn't find it very funny. He ran in pure panic, missed a step, and tumbled down a flight of stairs like a final girl in a horror movie. The poor guy ended up with a shattered knee, and the prankster? Well, he ended up with a suspension, a lawsuit, and the eternal honor of being known as the guy who chainsawed a coworker on Halloween. Bravo, Professor. Truly an educational experience for everyone involved. Number 17. Now, speaking of genius ideas, let's move on to the fire-breathing fiasco, or as I like to call it, the Darwin Awards. Party Edition. Every year, hospitals brace themselves for what can only be described as flaming stupidity. Someone always decides to spice things up at a Halloween party by breathing fire. Usually, after enough alcohol to fuel a small jet engine. These self-proclaimed performers grab a bottle of high-proof liquor or, God forbid, gasoline and try to blow it into a torch. The result? A spectacular burst of flame, followed by a trip to the ER with second-degree burns and the faint smell of singed eyebrows. One partygoer reportedly managed to set not just his face, but also his friend's fake witch wig on fire. Imagine explaining that one to the nurse. Yeah, I was trying to impress some people dressed as vampires, and now I look like a roasted marshmallow. Hospitals literally have a category for this: Halloween fire breathers. That's right, it's that common. It's like natural selection's version of a seasonal flu. And because Halloween never disappoints, there's the pumpkin spice gasoline edition, a story that somehow combines alcohol, ego, and zero self preservation instincts. One man decided that lighter fluid was too boring, so he went with straight up gasoline for his dragon trick. Spoiler alert: dragons don't need reconstructive surgery, but he did. And yes, there's video evidence. Because of course, there is. And that's it for today's Halloween edition of the Darwin Awards. A chilling reminder that sometimes the scariest thing about this holiday isn't ghosts or monsters, it's human stupidity. If you enjoyed this wild ride through the world's dumbest decisions, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a comment with the craziest story you've ever heard, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder to think before they prank. Stay smart, stay safe, and remember, evolution favors the careful. See you in the next one.